Good afternoon. Welcome today to our webinar, Creating a High-Quality Career Technical Education System, a guide for CTE leaders. If you have just joined us, we have a poll on the right-hand side, and we'd love to have you mark what position you hold so that our speaker, Cheryl Ryder, can facilitate the conversation and presentation to your needs. We will be using the raised hand to have you notify our speakers that you have finished the area that she is asking you to look at, or if you agree, and that's in the gray bar up at the top. We'll also be using our PDF or the Word document of the CTE course guide. If you have not had an opportunity to download that, please do that now. Our webinar today is brought to you in partnership with the Napa County Office of Education and the California Department of Education. My name is Teresa Cook, and I will be your facilitator today. Our presenter is Cheryl Ryder. Cheryl Ryder is a CTE and academic teacher of 20 years. She is also a CTE coordinator and administrator at both Napa and Placer counties for the past 8 years. She is a co-author and trainer of the CTE Model Curriculum Standards. She's a certified University of California Curriculum Integration Facilitator. Cheryl has worked with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing as a work group facilitator. She's a CTIG Technical Assistant for Region 2, and she serves on the KROP and CACT Executive Boards and chairs a regional CTIG consortium. Welcome, Cheryl, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate your support and providing me all this assistance as we put together this pretty intensive overview of the course study guide. So with that, I would like to share with you the goals for today for our presentation. You have already received a copy of the CISC CTE course guide. So that's the bulk of today's presentation. You're going to learn how this course of study is organized. We'll examine how to use resources in this guide to develop a comprehensive CTE plan. And we'll identify current and updated resources that are relevant to this guide. So with that, let's get this show going. The CTE course guide was developed under the leadership of the California County Superintendent's Educational Services Association. Under their C&I steering committee, we have a CTE subcommittee that recruited CTE experts from across the state to create this guide. Now, it was created back in 2008. There have been some updates since then, but some of this content you'll find is a little bit out of date. So as we run into that information, I will be giving you some resources to update what you need to know. So as Teresa mentioned before, you received 2 copies of the document, a PDF and a Word document. The reason I'm giving you both is that the PDF is much easier to navigate and to just quickly find things that you're looking for. But the Word document gives you the ability to take portions out and reproduce those or share them with others. I've also created some comments in the right-hand margin of the Word document that will alert you when you run into those areas that may have been replaced by other information in other documents. So if you can pull up one of those 2 copies, one of those so that you can refer to it, when I give you some time to look through portions on your own, you'll be pulling that up on your screen or on your other device. And then just reduce that size so you can see the presentation as we go back and forth. So I'd like to give you just a really quick story. When I first came to Placer County Office of Education and started meeting some district leaders and discussing career technical education, there was one particular leader who said, you know, we've never really invested in career tech ed. We're focused on a college-going culture with AP and UC approved type courses. But after going through this course guide with fidelity, they now have several viable CTE programs that are thriving and growing. So I'm just so pleased to know that this resource that I have used for many years has also helped others. So in this webinar, we're going to include a review of the course of study guide and see those updated resources. Again, what Teresa mentioned before, at the top of your screen, there's an icon of a person with their hand raised, and I'll refer to that a couple of times throughout this presentation. And there's also a chat feature. You're welcome to ask questions as we go through the document and the resources, and I'll give you a chance to also give us your opinions and your ideas. So with that, I'm going to get us started on the contents at a glance. So a few pages into this document, you'll see just the big overview. We're going to spend a moment on the organization of the course of study. It's a really nice graphic organizer that helps you understand the structure of this document. We'll spend much of our time today on Section 1, the 11 elements of a high-quality CTE plan. I'm sure many of you have seen those elements, and this document will give you some more detailed information on how to make sure that your programs are of high quality. Section 2 gives us some templates for planning your CTE system. So these are really nice in that Word document to pull out and share with others. Section 3 shows us a standards-aligned course template. I do have 2 resources to help you with that, and I'm going to show those at the very end of our presentation today. Appendix A has many sample documents to support the essential elements of your high-quality CTE program. And Appendix B have reference materials. There are some supporting documents as well that we'll refer to throughout this. So if you are looking at the document itself while I'm talking, I'm going to tell you where we are in the process. Directly after the introduction on page one, you're going to see the organization of this course of study guide. So we'll take a look at that, the organization of the course of study. So as we go through several of these areas, the elements, you're going to see a repeated pattern. The very top of each of these elements, you're going to have a description of that element. Then we'll be looking at essential components of that, how they correlate to the CTE framework that has been used in the past more than now with our new model curriculum standards, but it's very helpful information with even page numbers there. And then there's going to be a section in each of these that tells you information for the instructional leader. That's you. That is you. I saw how many district and site administrators. We have some TOSAs in the room and coordinators, and I'm very grateful to see that we have some teachers with us today because I think you're also driving that conversation at your local level. Each of these sections also includes some templates, so you want to pay attention to those as we go through. And we're going to look at element number 1 just to see this pattern, and I'll point out some relevant information, and then I'll give you some time to review some of this information on your own. So there is a small section here that introduces the 11 elements, pages 9 through 11. What I really like about these 3 pages is that it will give a very brief description of each of those elements without too much verbiage. It's one of those handouts that you give to your site administrators who might not know much about the 11 elements. It's helpful to use with board members, perhaps business partners. So pages 9 to 11 in your document is a really nice summary that you can pull out of that Word document so that you can share with others. And, you know, it's really nice to refer to it when you're in meetings and so forth. I'm going to take a good close look at element number 1. This is regarding leadership at all levels. And it includes, as I mentioned, people just like you, principals, TOSAs, CTE coordinators, district officials, advisory board members will be a part of your CTE team as well. And those key teachers, the leaders of your CTE program. So as I mentioned in that graphic organizer, you're going to note the descriptor at the top of that page for this element. see that they have an explanation for the essential program components. It also shows the implication for your CTE plan. The Word doc, again, allows you to pull out these pieces if you want to focus on one element at a time, perhaps with professional development. You're going to see that there are guidelines throughout each of these elements that will help you organize the steps that you need to take toward a high-quality CTE plan. And you'll find those steps at the end of each element. So if you haven't had a robust CTE plan, or if your CTE plan just needs to be refreshed and updated, this checklist is really helpful for you to go through each of those elements to determine what is it that you need to do. So we're going to look at element number 2 on page 20. I'd like you to take a moment, if you already have up that document on your own screen or on another device, take a moment to look through element number 2. This is high quality curriculum and instruction. Note you have the descriptor and the implications for your CTE plan, and review the steps to follow. When you have scanned through element number 2 on your own, when you get to element number 3, please raise your hand so I can see who's with me. If you have any questions, you're welcome to use this chat. I see that we have almost half everybody has been able to look at element number 2. I'll give you a few more moments. Okay, so one of the things you might have noticed in element number 2 is that they're referring to the state standards. And we know that the CTE model curriculum standards were updated in 2013, so this document does not have those new standards. I will give you a link to those resources to assist you with the changes that you're going to need to know as you work through your high-quality CTE system. Now we're going to look at element number 3. And if you can find that, it will be page 33 in the book that you're looking at. The element number 3 shows some ideas and resources for people who are helping students discover their interests and aptitudes, the career exploration and guidance. I'd really like to hear from you in the chat box. Use the chat box to share what resources do you know of, or what have you used? How have you helped students with career exploration? We'd like to get 2 or 3 great ideas from you that you can share with everybody else. So I see several people are beginning to type some ideas into the chat down at the bottom of your screen. I see from Elena, California Career Zone. That's awesome. Virtual Job Shadow. Dan also likes California Career Zone. So So while others are sharing some information, Susan, can I share my screen for a moment, please? I would like to show folks what that California Career Zone looks like. Okay, so I'm just pulling this up on my screen so you can see the California Career Resources Network. CalCURN is also a short, CALCRN. And this is a resource that's created by the California Department of Education. Some of you know John Maris-Coots very well. He does a phenomenal job updating this resource as he finds relevant material. This can be used by teachers to grab some lessons. It could be used by students to do career aptitude assessments, looking at different career options. What does it take to get to the area that they want to be? So if you have never used this resource before, California Career Zone and California Career Resource Network, I strongly encourage you to take a moment to scan through what are these resources. And at the end of this presentation, I'll refer to this and others. I think Susan has already sent you a list of resources, so this is extremely helpful. Okay, we're going to go back to the document so that we can look at some other pieces. California Career Cruising, I see in the chat box we've got Navient, using student ambassadors. That's a fabulous idea. Always having students help other students is a wonderful way to get folks engaged with this kind of work. Career Cruising. Okay, so we're going to start looking at the next element. And I'm actually going to give you a couple of minutes to look at some elements on your own. So we've looked at element number 1 and 2. We talked about element number 3. So on your own, if you could please pull up that document and scan through elements 4 through 8. Just scanning through those elements and note the structure that this document offers, the descriptors at each element, scan the implications for your CTE plan, reviewing the steps to follow. So pick maybe 1 or 2 elements and look at a little more deeply. We're going to give you a couple of minutes, and when you get this time to element number 9, please raise your hand. We'll start again at element number 9. Susan, do you have some think music for our guests? today, you can see that this is a very in-depth text of each of those elements that you've reviewed. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to use that chat space. I'm going to come back to the webinar screen and look at element number 9. There are often questions regarding credentialing. I always refer people to go to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing website for up-to-date and accurate information. That is one of those resources in the handout that we're providing you. If you have a quick question that I might be able to answer today, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat space, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a look at page 62 on your document, page 62. The CTIG and Perkins funding requires that an instructor have proper credentialing for those funds to be spent on their program. So there are a couple of ways to help make that happen. There is a designated subject's credential. Oops, got the wrong page here. Let me put that in. There's a designated subject's credential that can be obtained by anybody who has enough industry experience in a certain area and or coursework or teaching experience. So at this time, the requirement is 3,000 hours or 3 years of industry experience. Now that can be offset with a combination of classroom coursework and teaching. So the minimum at this time is 1,000 hours for a designated subject's credential as long as you have teaching experience and have some coursework under your belt for that industry sector. The question at this time is whether or not the Commission on Teacher Credentialing is going to change those requirements. So with this influx of dollars, there's been a lot of pressure, I would say, or questions, requests from to the Commission to make these requirements a little more flexible. So the last I knew, working with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, they're looking at reducing from 1,000 hours to possibly 500 hours for a person to get an authorization and then continue working toward that designated subject's credential while they have that authorization. Some folks would like to go even further and have that minimal number of hours down to 250. So the last I knew, the Commission was just asking for more information. I provided them details from all 50 states so they can compare what are we asking with what other states are asking. So with that information, I also want to point out that there are a handful of single subject credentials that are also considered appropriate for career technical education. For example, agriculture. If a person has an agricultural credential, they are able to teach in all pathways under the agriculture industry sector. A person who may have a business education credential can actually teach in 3 different industry sectors. They are authorized to teach business and finance, marketing, sales, and services, which also includes entrepreneurship, and information communication technologies. It just so happens that I have a business education credential. I'm perfectly comfortable teaching business management, finance. I'm even okay with marketing and entrepreneurship, but please don't ask me to teach information communication technologies. I am just not proficient in ICT. So it is a local decision. Even though I may be authorized to teach in all 3 of those industry sectors, it's a local decision for your administration to determine where are you most suited to teach in those areas authorized. Home economics also has 3 industry sectors that a person can teach in. It includes fashion and interior design, hospitality, tourism, and recreation, and education and child development. So that's a secondary subject credential that also allows people to teach in 3 different CTE industry sectors. The industrial and technology education is even more broad. Under that credential, an individual could teach things all the way from construction, energy and utilities, engineering, manufacturing, and even transportation. So it is a local decision for those single subject secondary credentials on what the teacher is actually going to be placed under, but an individual who is being hired, it should be really considered what their expertise is, what their background is before a single subject credential is placed under any area of authorization. I see that we have a question about national board teachers. Actually, the national certification has nothing to do with career technical education authorization in California. So a person could have a single subject credential in any of these areas and be board certified, but that board certification does not necessarily give them the authorization to teach career tech ed. I hope that answers your question. So again, you'll be receiving a link to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to verify that the teachers that you have in CTE courses are appropriately credentialed. And again, the funding sources are very particular that an individual is properly certified, or they will not be able to utilize some of those funding sources in their classroom. Okay, we're going to move on to element number 10. This one addresses data collection. Please be aware that CBEDS codes are being discontinued and being replaced with CalPADS course codes. These new codes are going to be how the state pulls data regarding student completion of a sequence of courses. So it's extremely important that you keep your CalPADS and your course codes data up to current numbers. So currently, this year, they have updated the agriculture and the arts, media, and entertainment industry sectors. So the state has already updated those. You should have had those updated for your reports this year. If you haven't, please take note of that. You want to go back and look at those course codes. And then starting in July, all industry sectors will have new course codes. And again, this information is going to be reported to the State Department, and it replaces the old API scores for schools. And the new dashboard is going to be accessible to parents, so they're all going to be able to see the career and college readiness indicators. So updated information is going to be given at the end of this presentation so that you have access to the new course codes as we know them today. And note that in July, we'll have all new course codes for all of the industry sectors and pathways.
We do have a quick question from Simi Puri. Can a teacher who has marketing, sales, and service credentials teach business management pathway and vice versa? Since there seems to be an overlap.
Yes, that's a very good question. So the designated subject's credentials will authorize a person to teach within a certain pathway. Many teachers, because of their broad experience, will have authorizations across different pathways. So if it's a designated subject's credential for marketing, sales, and services, they cannot teach in the business management pathway. However, if that individual has the secondary subject credential for business education, then all three of those industry sectors I mentioned before, you can be authorized. So it just depends on which one. Single subject, yes. Designated subject, not necessarily. So we encourage people to get as many of those authorizations as possible in the designated subjects areas, because that is going to allow them to jump from one pathway to another, from one industry sector to another. So we are going to provide the link to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. You want to make sure that you're following those guidelines, and there will be some updates in the future. We're hopeful that it's going to be a more flexible opportunity for folks, but it is essential that you are clear what industry sectors you're authorized, because, again, as I mentioned, funding is going to come with those credentials and authorizations.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl.
I just want to make one more note about the CalPADS codes before I move on to element number 11. The CalPADS codes, when you're updating your information for your school pathways, it's really helpful to have the teacher a part of that conversation. And if you're a teacher, you want to make sure that you're talking to the right person who is entering those CalPADS codes. The State Department of Education recommends that you have a counselor, a teacher, and an administrator together review those course codes with the new CalPADS information. As I mentioned, this is going to be a part of that dashboard that the State Department publishes for everyone to see.
We do have one more question on credentialing from Tony.
Okay.
He asked, do you know the logic behind the designated subject credential and why a single subject credential isn't enough?
Yes, career technical education is similar to your academic courses, where you want a math teacher to have a real deep knowledge and understanding of mathematical concepts. So we require a math teacher to have a bachelor's degree in their field. Same with English language arts. You want that deep understanding, that breadth of knowledge as well in their field. So career tech ed is not any different. We want an individual to have a deep knowledge and understanding of that industry sector. And typically, in order to understand it well, all aspects of industry, you want an individual to have had experience in that industry. So if you have an engineer, for example, you want a person who has had years of experience in engineering so that they know how to communicate that language, how to help young people understand what does it mean for working with those architectures, what does it mean to do like soil samples or pressure controls, and all of those aspects that perhaps somebody who has been in college for several years wouldn't have that depth of knowledge. So it's not considered a regular credential. The designated subject credential is asking for industry experience. However, a single subject credential, for example, agriculture, the training is in that education process. So for a person to receive an agricultural credential, they are gaining that knowledge and experience in their university training. So you can have that theory and the practice while you're getting that single subject credential in some areas, but not all. I'll just take a moment to discuss the CSET. An individual who has a math credential could take a CSET, California Subject Exam for Teachers, to get an authorization in agriculture or in business and any of those single subject credentials that allows a person to teach CTE. So a CSET is an avenue by which an individual can get credentialed for CTE. Okay, some very good questions. Thank you for that. So now we're going to go to element number 11. And this one has to do with promotion and outreach. We know that students are not going to sign up for a CTE course or a pathway unless they know about them. Some schools are using tools like Naviance or perhaps Cooter to help students be aware of their interests and aptitudes. So when a student understands what makes them tick, so to speak, then we can help support them into choosing courses and pathways that will enhance what they need to know to have a career in what they love to do. So one of the things that was mentioned earlier is the California Career Resources Network. That is perfect. CaliforniaCareers.info is going to help with not only this area to help students understand what makes them tick and what pathways to go to, but also helps them with element number 3. It is very important for you to all be on the same page in how you're promoting programs. Unfortunately, I was at a meeting yesterday with a district talking about we made a mistake and didn't put this program or this course in our course guide in our program for the students to select from next year. And so they're scrambling to fill a class that would have been very, very popular, but they forgot to promote it. They didn't put it in their course guide. So that is a real painful experience to go through. You want to make sure that everybody's on the same board, from the counselors, the teachers, and perhaps middle schools. Talk with your middle schools. Have them come to your school site and tour the CTE classes so that they have an understanding of what opportunities are there when they come to the high school. So that was a real broad overview of the tool in regards to the 11 elements of high-quality CTE. I strongly encourage you to read through those sections a little more carefully and share portions of that with your CTE stakeholders. As I mentioned, that Word document is wonderful to pull out a section. I just pulled out sections 2 and 3 yesterday to work with my executive team, and we're looking at how might we be able to assist other folks in the curriculum instruction and career exploration when it comes to middle school. So take advantage of that. I see that Susan put in a link to Cooter. That is one of those assessments that can assist students in finding out what is a good option for them in their career development, what makes them tick, their career aptitudes and interests. All righty, we're going to run down to section 2 now. This is a chunk of the document as a whole. It has several planning templates for developing your CTE plan as a district. There's a number of templates throughout this course guide. We're going to look at page 80 in the document so that you can see what this comprehensive guide has to offer for instructional leaders. So on the screen right now, it's sideways. I think you can make that adjustment on your side. Thank you. On the left-hand side, you see the steps to follow. This is just putting all of those elements together from element 1 through 11. All those steps to follow in each of those high-quality elements are put together here so that you can start working with your district. So you see all these steps to follow on the left. You have some space here to jot down some ideas of how you're going to address this in your school, in your district. What is your plan? I really like the space here that says persons responsible. We often know that there are things that need to be addressed. There are tasks that need to get done, but until you actually have a person identified here, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So when are these steps going to be completed and by when? So this is a lengthy document. Again, you can pull that out of the Word version that I'm sending you, and the Word version will also allow you to make comments on that document. So I really appreciate this piece here. I mentioned that one of our local school districts completely turned around their approach to career technical pathways, and they're using this template. They're using this one. And I don't know if they would have had as many advances if they didn't have this tool to depend on. So check it out. Take some time to cruise through it and be thoughtful of who you might share it with. How can you get your district cohort to be motivated and really doing a nice job with CTE planning? Next, we're going to look at section 3. Let me pull that up on the screen here. Oops. We got it sideways. We'll get it straight just a second. All right, thank you, Susan. Again, section 3 has more templates, really helpful templates for things like writing a course outline, conducting an advisory board. And some of this is out of date, not all of it, but I'm going to show you some resources that are going to be very helpful as you use this template and refer to the new information. So in here we have a really nice template for writing a course outline. Perkins requires that you identify certain pieces of information that is in here. You have to identify what is the industry sector and pathway. Is it an introduction, a concentration, or a capstone course? The local course number, I just talked to you about CBEDS. CBEDS is now being replaced with CalPADS. So just know that you've got a little bit of looking to do at these new CalPADS numbers. Starting July 1st for most industry sectors, they're already in place for ag and arts, media, and entertainment. How many course hours? Is it articulated? What grade levels are we looking at? Are there any certifications that go along with this program, and so on? The part about this course outline that it needs to be updated is the standards. It gives you space for the old anchor standards and so forth, which has been, those things have been updated. So I'm providing you some resources that will help you update that information more easily. There's also a space here that shows you an example of what that might look like. And the information I give you will also show examples. So to align with the new model curriculum standards in a course outline that's more suitable for these new standards, one of the recommendations I give is to go to the Sacramento County Office of Education's website. They have a CTE course outline. It's not perfect, but it gives everybody a really great start in aligning their curriculum. So this is where teachers might be developing a new course or revising their current course to align to the new standards. I've also given you a template that we're using at the Placer County Office of Education. It's a Word document that allows you to insert your information. So you'll be getting both of those. I see Susan put one in the chat box already. So you can go to that ctecourse.scoa.net. And if we have some time at the end of this presentation, I will show you that document or that online tool. It's very easy to navigate. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. Some of you may have seen this list before. It's that CTE high quality program checklist. I've seen a couple of different versions of this. It's pretty much standard, but we all use tools differently. This one gives you a yes or no. Am I meeting this element or am I not? Many of us across the state use this checklist. It's also called a survey, high quality CTE survey, to determine where are we in the development of our CTE programs. For CTIG, we needed to find out, the CTE incentive grant, we needed to find out where are the gaps. What do we address first with these new dollars? So in Placer County, we actually put this in a Google form and asked our teachers to rate themselves, yes, I'm meeting this element, or no, I'm not. And then that gave us a really nice summary on where are the gaps. So if we know people are doing promotion and outreach, we're not going to spend a lot of time and effort on that other than perhaps giving some templates and some ideas. But it's not something that they need training on. One of the areas we found that people need a lot of support in is the career technical student organizations. There's a lot of concern about meeting that element for student leadership. So we've come up with some different types of options for people to meet that element, and we were able to provide that training to our teachers. Another part that I really like about this course guide, excuse me, is that it's got a comprehensive guide to running advisory boards. Oh, Jody, thank you. I see cteonline.org. That's, of course, we want to use that for course outlines, lesson plans, and so forth. So please do visit that if you haven't already. And back to our PDF that we've got several pages in here that will guide you through the advisory board process. It gives you a sample agenda. It gives you a checklist on what to do in advance. And I'd like to hear from you. If you have any great ideas, first of all, raise your hand if you've participated in an advisory board. Have you ever been at the table when these advisory boards are, oh, lots and lots of people. I see those hands going up. So there's nothing like being at an advisory board to really understand the nuts and bolts. And some of them go extremely well, and some of them just kind of fall flat or go sideways. So if you could take a moment in the chat space, if you have an idea that makes an advisory meeting successful, what do you think somebody can do to ensure that their advisory meeting is successful? I'll give you a couple of minutes to share. Brenda says have a clear agenda and a strong facilitator. Definitely. And sometimes it's really helpful to have the business advisors, one of the business advisors, take that leadership role. In fact, we're supposed to have a business partner chair the advisory. So if they're chairing and they're facilitating, you get that air of focus. Jennifer says create roles and responsibilities document for members and chair. Thank you. CCMA providing a clear picture of the state of CTE programs. Have them look at CTE curriculum and provide input. Thank you, Rosa. Oh, what a great idea, Margie. Advisory board observe a class in session. What an awesome idea. Hopefully we have some of our business partners that are engaged with that work-based learning component, that they've gotten to know the teacher and the students quite well. They'll give some wonderful input with that.
So Cheryl, this is Teresa. What information can you share about community members on an advisory board?
Community members, are we thinking about nonprofits and that sort of thing?
Yeah, how do we get community members to serve on the advisory board?
You know, parents are a great resource for that, because even if they aren't experts in the field that the pathway is directed toward, they always have some great ideas on how to reach out and engage students with the community, which is part of the student leadership part, right? And so if you don't have a CTSO, or even if you do, that outreach is really helpful for that. I think they might have some good ideas on bringing other business partners into the fold and engaging students with work-based learning at, business sites, touring places, having job shadows and that sort of thing. So it's really helpful. I see that SEMA also mentions advisory members can judge a competitive event. It's always a challenge to get enough people to give input for students. So having your business partners invited to participate in one of your programs is an awesome way to recruit them for your advisory boards as well. Thank you for that. We're going to look very briefly at the document on page 156. It has CTE standards, but as I mentioned before, the standards in this guide are outdated. This guide was first published in 2008. There was an update in 2010, but the new standards actually were published in 2013. So we're giving you a link to the new standards at the end of this presentation. You also have the handout that was given earlier. So please be mindful that the standards in this document need to be updated. One of the requirements for a high-quality CTE program is to have a sequence of courses. The typical sequence is an introduction course, concentration, and capstone. This is often in collaboration with the county offices, but not always. And we also want to know that there's a post-secondary component. So many of these requirements are addressed in this course guide that will help you understand what it is that Perkins is looking for. So the state plan, the state CTE plan, is based on the Perkins requirements. So this guide helps you go through all of those. Appendix B has some reference materials. So again, these are really great as background information. You want to make sure that you're looking at updated resources. Many of these are still in effect, like californiacareers.info is still there. The UC Office of the President link is still there for A to G credit, but we're giving you some other great connections. And Brenda mentioned earlier CTE Online, which is an awesome resource. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section of the document, Appendix C, Research. I mentioned the dates that this was published, but if you have anybody in your leadership positions that still aren't convinced that Career Tech Ed is the way to go, there are some very good white papers and articles in this section that you can pull out of that Word document and say, you know, bedtime reading, or before you have a meeting with them, you'd like them to review some of this information. It's helpful to be on the same page when you and your leaders are passionate about career technical education, wanting to make sure you've got the best for your students. This is a really large document. You can see it's almost 300 pages. So far, we've just done a cursory overview of what the contents are for this document. I believe that this can be very helpful for you as you look to a CTE plan or refresh your CTE plan with your district leaders. I encourage you to use that Word document, pull it out for professional development, for those meetings and so forth. So at this time, it concludes the review of the course guide. Teresa, do we have time to look at some of these resources?
We have just a couple of minutes, actually, if you want to move on.
So how about if we look at just one of the resources? I mentioned about the course outline when teachers are creating a course outline, and they often need some support to do that. I'm going to go to the Sacramento County CTE course outline. So this is one of those resources that I shared with you, ctecourse.scoe.net. It's free. You can it's easy to log in and get your own email and password. Your email is your login, and then you get a password. This home page shows that you would just type in a course name, and I put in a sample small business management course just to give you an idea of what this looks like. When you enter the information, it's going to give you the opportunity to put in, oh, I see that it's not, there we go. You're going to put in the course information along with those CalPADS codes that I mentioned earlier. Once you get your CalPADS codes and the title of the document and so forth, it's going to ask you other pertinent information that would be asked normally through like Perkins and so forth. So it's the sequence of courses, it's post-secondary connections, it's going to ask, do you have articulation and so forth. This page is asking for ONET. What are those careers out there that this course leads to? What are you leading to? I see this is a little bit slower than I wanted to spend on this time. It's a simple process to enter the information. If you want to align it to your course outline, you align your course outline to the new model curriculum standards. This tool has a menu that all you have to do is click on what are those standards that you are identifying for the course. So you write in a brief description of the unit, and then it allows you to look at the drop-down and identify where are those standards. So I'm going to take you right to the sharing so you can see what the end result looks like. So you're entering all the requirements that Perkins asked for. What is that program of study? And check out how they put all those standards right in there. So I didn't complete this course outline. I just wanted to show you some of those elements so that you are inspired to take a look at this tool to see if it works for you and your teachers. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it back to Susan and Teresa.
Great. Thank you so much. Amazing amount of information. Remember, people, the links that were provided in the chat were sent out in a handout, and they are here for you. If you'd like to stick around, we can answer some of, Cheryl can answer some of the last questions. I see that Annette has one. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Susan. I do really appreciate all of you coming today. Here's Cheryl's information. If you would like to give her drop her an email, she can definitely help you out with her wealth of knowledge on all these subjects she has been talking about today. We want to thank the State Department of Education for the State of California and Napa County Office of Education for providing this webinar to you today. And as you're leaving, you will be faced with a poll, and that poll can give us some information on how we can improve and what worked for you. You have one opportunity for each of the 5 stars, 1 being poor and 5 being the most awesome in the world. We do thank you again for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.